explosion is a spontaneous chemical reaction that once it is initiated, it will be driven by both a large exothermic change and a large positive entropy change, and going from reactants from products, thereby constituting a thermodynamically process in which it propagates very rapidly. Besides, an explosion is a rapid expansion in volume associated with an extremely vigorous outward release of energy, usually with the generation of high temperatures and release of high pressure gases. One best example in a accident-like explosion is the explosion of a chemistry lab at Texas Tech University. Did you know that this happened just because of two students conducting some experiments to make derivatives of an explosive substance called nickel hydrazine perchlorate? So it is an energetic material having explosive properties in between that of primary explosive and a secondary explosive. It is a salt of a coordination compound of nickel. They created 10 grams of the substance, which is not advisable. And when one of the students crushed the substance with a pestle, a terrible explosion occurred. Fortunately, no one died, but the students suffered from burns and lost 3 fingers. So yes, that is just an example of explosion of a accident-like explosion. If you will look closely to the topic, it's like explosion is just connected to chemical spillage, fire, and injuries. You think that if there is explosion, it might be a effect of chemical spillage or fire, and its cause is injuries.
Cause of explosion. Generally, there are different causes of explosion. However, the common cause of explosion is by a range of complex reactions which result in the rapid expansion of gas and energy. Explosion also occurs when gases are exposed to source of heat such as fire, sparks, even static electricity, or an increase in pressure. Not the different types of explosion. First is dust explosion, second experiment explosion, third gas explosion, fourth oxygen tank explosion, fifth vacuum pump explosion, and the last one is boiler explosion.
And dust explosions are the result of high concentrations of combustible dust particles rapidly combusting inside an enclosed space. When mixed with oxygen, these fine particles can be ignited when coming into contact with a spark, metal ember, cigarette butt, or other ignition source. Whereas experiment explosion, main explosions occur when gases are exposed to a source of heat, such as fire, sparks, even static electricity, or an increase in pressure. Explosions can also be caused by chemical reactions. For instance, when 2 or more incompatible substances are combined, they may explode.
Next is the gas explosion. A gas explosion occurs when there is a gas leak in the presence of a spark or flame. Gases such as natural gas, methane, propane, and butane are the most common types of gases to cause explosions because they are commonly used for heating purposes. Next is the oxygen tank explosion. The main causes of fire and explosion when using oxygen are oxygen enrichment from leaking equipment, use of materials not compatible with oxygen, use of oxygen in equipment not designed for oxygen service, and incorrect or careless operation of oxygen equipment.
Vacuum pump explosion. In a vacuum pump explosion, the most common cause is a violent rupture of a vacuum system component or ignition of flammable materials or the blockage or even a restriction of the pump exhaust. To avoid hazards, you should pay attention to the following to ensure the safe operation of your vacuum pumps and systems. Lastly, the boiler explosion. A boiler explosion is most often happens when the burner flame is out. Ignition failure, loose valves, and faulty gas lines can all allow for the buildup of combustion gas in a high temperature vessel. This can cause not only a boiler explosion but gases can also leak throughout the facility.
If there is an explosion, you should first immediately take cover under cables, tees, or other just object that will give protections against flying glass and trees. If naman situation na mahitabo man nasa laboratory kay maugid ang una nato buhaton, dili gyud ta magpanik. Dapat mutago tas lamisa aron na makaprotect nato sa mga glass na nangabuhak or sa mga glass na nanglupad or sa mga equipment na nibuto or on sa pamana. Second, after the effects of the explosion have subsided, call the emergency 911 national office and 88. After na situation kay mutawag ta or mga itagtabang ang 911 na national office or sa 888 ta mutawag. Try to establish what exploded, the extent of the damage and possible life-threatening hazards to determine your next course of action. So, waya nag-establish kung unsa man to ang na-explode sa extent sa mga damage o sa possible life-threatening hazards to determine sa next course of actions. Take immediate action to ensure your safety and the safety of others. Evacuate according to your building plan. If necessary, otherwise remain in your place or cover. If necessary, activate the laboratory alarm system. Take immediate actions to ensure your safety. If kini na situation, dili gayud ta mag-ingon OA or mag-selfish kay dapat ato sang hunahon ang safety sa uban og dili ra ang atong safety. Mo-evacuate ta according sa building plan na maginay building plan ang taga school na gina sila plano if asa gid mo exit para ra sa safety sa mga students or sa mga tao.
So you can assist any disabled persons in evacuating the building. Exit via stairway and do not use elevators. If you evacuate, go to an area upwind from the explosion site to avoid possible toxic fumes. Once outside, move at least 150 feet away from the affected building and keep roadways and walkways clear for emergency vehicles. Wait for instructions from emergency personnel and do not re-enter the laboratory until instructed to do so by the Public Safety Department or other properly identified emergency personnel.